I'm explaining scikit-learn's checkscoring function. It's a crucial part of scikit-learn, used for evaluating machine learning models. Think of it as a quality control officer for your model's scoring system. We're tackling a multiple-choice question about checkscoring. Get ready to test your knowledge. This question focuses on the checkscoring function within the scikit-learn Sklearn library, specifically in the context of binary classification, where there are only two possible outcomes. Statement A says that if you give checkscoring something that's not a function, a scorer, it will complain with a valuerror. This is true. Statement B says you can give checkscoring a string like accuracy, and it will understand what you mean. That's correct. Statement C claims that no matter what you give checkscoring, it always gives back a function, a callable scorer, to do the actual scoring. That is a true statement. Statement D suggests that checkscoring only accepts predefined metric names, strings, if it receives input from an estimator's scoring parameter. This is false. It can handle functions, too. Let's talk about how checkscoring handles what you give it, input. This is about what checkscoring gives you back, output. It can take a function as input. It can also take a string like accuracy as input. I'll explain the error handling. !check_scoring is really strict. If you give it a scorer that isn't a function or a valid string name, it throws a !value error . That's how it makes sure you're using it correctly. This is true. I can give !check_scoring a string like accuracy, and it'll understand that I want the accuracy score. It's smart enough to turn that string into a function that calculates accuracy. Absolutely. No matter what you give !check_scoring a function or a string, it always gives you back a function. This function is ready to calculate your chosen scoring metric. That's the whole point of !check_scoring, to standardize things. This one is false. I can pass any callable function from a model to !check_scoring, not just a string name. The statement is too restrictive. !check_scoring is more flexible than that. I see that !check_scoring is designed to handle errors gracefully. If you give it something that isn't a function or a valid scoring metric name, like a string that doesn't map to a known metric, it'll let you know by raising a !value error . That's a standard way in Python to signal that something went wrong with the input. I'm focusing on how flexible !check_scoring is. You can give it a string, like accuracy or precision, and it'll understand. Or, you can give it a function you wrote yourself. It'll work with that too. This statement is true. I've already explained that. If you give it something that can't be called as a function, the callable part, it rightly complains with a !value error . The cool thing about !check_scoring is that, no matter what you give it, a string or a function, what it gives you back is always a function. That's its job, to standardize things to a callable function. The main purpose is to make sure that the scoring part of your machine learning works smoothly regardless of how you define your scoring function. It cleans up the input and guarantees the output will be a usable function. This is true, consistent with the output part discussed earlier. It ensures the output is a function you can use to evaluate your model's performance. No matter the input, the output is a consistent and usable scorer function. This is also true. It can handle strings that represent standard scoring metrics, like, you can give it accuracy, and it'll know what you mean and provide the corresponding function. I love how it does this. This is false. That's a misconception. It's not only limited to string names, it accepts functions directly as input too. Think of it as being super flexible. I'm going to explain what the Sklearn metrics check_scoring function does. It's a crucial part of scikit-learn, a popular machine learning library in Python. This function takes something that measures model performance, a scorer, and makes sure it's in the right format for scikit-learn to use. Think of it as a quality control check for your scoring methods. It can use check_scoring with a simple string like accuracy. The function is smart enough to understand what I mean and convert it into the proper function to calculate accuracy. It handles different string names that represent various scoring metrics. This makes things convenient. I don't have to always pass complex functions. No matter what I give check_scoring whether it's a string like precision or an already existing function, it always gives me back a function that I can call to get a score. This consistency is very useful. This statement is incorrect. I can pass more than just a string to check_scoring. It can also handle more advanced, custom scoring functions. The function is flexible and accepts various input types, not just predefined strings. If I try to use something that isn't a function or a valid string with check_scoring, I'll get a value error . A specific type of error message that tells me something's wrong with my input. This is a safety check to prevent problems. I see that Sklearn metrics. Check_scoring is a function in the scikit-learn library. Its job is to make sure that you're using a scoring function correctly when you're evaluating how well a machine learning model performs. It takes different types of input and always gives you back a function you can use to calculate a score. That's pretty neat, huh? This statement is true. If you give check_scoring something that's not a function, or a string that names a valid scoring function, it'll yell at you. It'll raise a value error . It needs a function to work with. This one's also true. You can give check_scoring something like accuracy or precision as a string, and it'll understand what you mean. It converts that string into the proper function for calculating accuracy or precision. Pretty convenient, right? Correct again. No matter what you feed check_scoring, a function or a string, it always gives back a function that you can actually use to get a score. That's its whole purpose, to give you something you can call. This is false. I know that you might often use a string for an estimator's scoring parameter, but check_scoring is smart enough to accept a function directly, not just a string. It's flexible. This is simply clarifying that the preceding statements are part of a multiple choice question. I see that Sklearn metrics. Check_scoring is a function in the scikit-learn library. Its job is to make sure you give it a proper scoring function to evaluate a machine learning model. It handles different ways of providing the function and ensures that you get a function back that you can use to score your model. Think of it as a quality control check for your scoring methods. It's like a bouncer at a club. It only lets in valid scoring methods. You can give check_scoring either a string, like accuracy, which is a common way to evaluate how correct your model's predictions are, or a custom scoring function you have already created. A callable is just a fancy way of saying a function that can be called or executed. It handles both types flexibly. This is the function itself within scikit-learn that does the work I just described. It's the main focus of your question, and its behavior determines whether the different statements are true or false. I see that it takes a scorer as an input and tries to standardize it into a usable function. Regardless of whether you gave check_scoring a string or a callable function, the result will always be a callable scoring function ready to be used for model evaluation. This is its key feature. It standardizes inputs into a consistent usable format. If you try to give check_scoring something that isn't a valid scorer, like an integer or a string that isn't a recognized scorer, it'll give you an error telling you that the input is invalid. That's a value error specifically. It's like getting a "you're not on the guest list" message at the club. I see that you want to understand the Sklearn metrics. Check_scoring function. It's a crucial part of scikit-learn, a popular machine learning library in Python. Its primary job is to make sure that whatever you give it as a scoring metric, it returns something that can actually be used to score your model's performance. Think of it as a quality control checkpoint for scoring functions. This question is a multiple choice question. testing your knowledge of the check_scoring function's behavior within the context of a binary classification problem. A binary classification problem simply means you are trying to classify data into two categories. Think spam versus not spam, or cat versus dog. This statement is saying that no matter what you feed into the check_scoring function, be it a string like accuracy, or an actual function, it'll always spit out a function that you can use to evaluate your model. That's its whole purpose, to ensure you get a function ready to score your model's results. This statement is saying that if you try to give check_scoring something that isn't a function, or something that can't be turned into a function, like a string representing a valid scoring metric, it will throw an error, specifically a value error. That's how it lets you know you messed up the input. This statement claims that check_scoring is smart enough to accept something like the string accuracy. It's not just limited to accepting only functions. If you give it accuracy, it understands that you want to use accuracy as your scoring method. This statement is incorrect. I can tell you that check_scoring isn't that rigid. It's designed to accept a lot more input than just predefined strings. It's flexible and can handle functions directly, not only strings. This is the opposite of what the statement claims.